Okay, we'll start. Um, Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm Yash, and just starting with a basic introduction. I am a marketer turned, I would not say a coder, but in the entire this journey of vibe coding and all, I have been dabbling my hands with tech and AI last 3 4 years. Right, so the longest stint in marketing was running Gen Y Medium. I see a lot of team members from Gen Y Medium are here on the call today. It's a digital services agency, and we ran it for quite some time. Built it to like $3 million business, and it's still being run in able hands of Shriari. We actually ran it with one more ISB alum, Ravi, and Yashwant from IIT Bombay itself. Post then, I spent some time at Ola doing some expansion related work, and then started my own edtech Bibli, which is continuing, but monetization has not taken off. It is an AI based English tutor. That's when I started venturing into AI coding and no code based coding. And now I'm consulting since last 1 year on independent projects with AI and marketing. So today's session we are going to focus on Meta Ads MCP, right? And this is the official MCP. So there will be many community-based MCPs that you might have come across, but we are going to focus our discussion for the official one. And the session would be a mix of live walkthrough and some of the chats that I have already created, because sometimes those chats take time to load and all. So I've already created some prompts, etc. And especially from the form, there were questions related to creative analysis and creative fatigue and audience fatigue, and also I have actually done a detailed prompt and Q&A based on that. Right, which is something that people face when interacting, when operating ads on Meta Ads Manager. So we'll go through all of that, right? So the agenda looks like that. What's the basic stack? Live demo, some walkthroughs, going a bit deeper on creative, because that was one common question that I was getting across the board. And some of the limits that are there as of today in the MCP. Again, these things are changing very fast. So I'm assuming maybe 15 days or 1 month down the line, those limits will go away as well. Right. I hope you can see the slide that I'm moving. I've not made it full screen because anyway we'll move to Claude for most of the presentation. Right. So a very basic overview. I think people already know this, but just for some people who have not tried out Claude Code and Claude Cowork, both can be used to run MCPs. Now, what is MCP? Technical definition: it being a model context protocol which allows your LLMs like Claude to read or interact in natural language with the tools. So you would see that all the standard softwares, they are now releasing their MCPs, because what they are realizing is that instead of people actually coming and operating on a front end UI, people are just prompting and they are interacting via LLMs than doing it directly, right? So Meta released its official MCP some time back, and this session is on that. Google also has an MCP which is read only. I'm going to explore that and maybe share more details about it sometime later. But that's what the context of MCP. So MCP, if you see, this is the layer between your LLM engine, what is be it Claude or whatever you are using, that can connect to MCP, and then it connects with the platforms and eventually your ad accounts, etc. and all. The official server is how Meta has defined that what are the features that Claude can use via MCP. There are some limitations and we'll go over that, but it is quite handy as well. A basic difference between Claude Code and Claude Cowork. Cowork is more marketer friendly. It's a conversational UI. You can do things over there, and most of our today's walkthrough will be on Cowork. But I personally use Claude Code much more because it's a terminal based agent where you can build systems, build coding tasks, etc. A lot more friendly. But because the audience today is more marketers, we are going to use Cowork. The same thing what you're doing in Cowork can be done in Claude Code and vice versa. right? Cowork, there is some, like if you want to build a technical product, it is not that friendly. It is more for people who would want to just interact with the conversational UI. Okay, now we will now jump to Claude directly, and I'll show what all can be done, and we are going to take one account and see what all metrics can be used, etc. So I'll just shift the sharing to my Claude window. Hope everyone can see the screen. So there's a question over here. What about context? CC versus Cloud Code versus Cowork. So even in Cowork, the context is saved in memory and all. Cloud Code defines it in a much better manner, right, where you can access the local files, etc. In Cowork also, it's like I will show you actually in demonstration. Some of the memory is saved in the cloud, where it accesses and repeats some of the instructions. But definitely Cloud Code is way ahead if you really want to implement context and other things really well. And the fact that you can use Cloud Code as an engine to even do your creative, it can have that context. Or if you are building your product on Cloud Code, it can have that context and plug into what you are doing on ads. So that way it will be much more powerful. But if you are just focused on managing ads, etc., Cowork works just fine, right? And the objective of today's session is basically to go over that, right? Now, just going over this Meta MCP. Now, the first question everybody has, how to connect it. That is literally a 2 minutes job. So I'm actually maybe in the end I will disconnect it and show it, but for the purpose of the session I'm not going to it. So if you see, I clicked on customize and there are these connectors, right? I have these different MCPs which are connected. Meta MCP is a custom MCP. If I click over here, you see this URL, which is mcp.facebook.com/ads. It's literally a 2 minute job. You just need to come to this connector, add it, and then with your login, if you have a login into Meta's Business Manager, it will very easily connect throughout, right? So I've already connected it. In the end, if time permits, maybe I will disconnect it and show how to connect it again. But given the audience that we have, I think it would be pretty straightforward for everybody to do it. Now, if you look at this, right, this, I've already prompted some questions. This is for the purpose of this demonstration. I'm using my own company's ad account. I do have access to other ad accounts also, but the data, etc., is confidential. So the advertising spend in this is very low, but it will serve the demonstration purpose. So I'm just starting with very basic, right? So I have some basic questions about the Bibli account. What would you like? And it is asking me that what IDs, event volume, etc. So in Bibli, I ran two types of campaigns. One was an app event-based campaigns, and the other was a traffic-based campaign on my website. So I just asked a very basic question. I want you to tell me the campaigns that have been run since January for only app events, and it pulled these two campaigns with these spends and all. Now, it was not 100% accurate because there was one more campaign which was run on app events. And so the reason I'm sharing this is that what MCP is doing, it is fetching data based on certain controls that it is defining. And so like when I saw that it did not actually pull that particular campaign, I asked, is there also an event named 7-day trial success? This was one of the campaigns that I was running in this period, and it says that yes, there is something, and then I asked it, why did you miss it in the first fetch? And the reason it is saying is I filtered too aggressively. I dropped any campaign with a start time before 1st January. So the campaign was started before. So this is I would say a mistake any general analyst might also do, which we are seeing Claude is also doing. So it's not a magic wand. You have to be on top of it to ask it, prompt it, right questions so that it pulls the right data. right? And in this case, what we saw was that it actually missed fetching all the campaigns that were running for app events. But now when I gave that extra additional context, it gave me this information that, okay, these were the optimization events, etc. and all, right? So, and I'll move to the creative analysis in few minutes, etc. But I just wanted to first show like very basic Q&A kind of things that can be done with Meta MCP and all, right? So let's say if I ask over here, what were the ads that were performing best in trial 7-day underscore success, right? So again, it would take some time, but the point being which I was trying to make, and I will also show you in the other chats that I have already generated, and that will be much faster because that's already work that is done. It is not perfect, right? So you have to apply your marketing knowledge to guide it. What it is doing in a very handy manner is that you don't need to go to your dashboard. You are getting all this data in a very Q&A format. You are right, but the frameworks, etc., that you set, and especially we will look at the creative analysis framework, where it did a lot of in my marketing terms, I would say a lot of mistakes in the kind of framework it chose, and when I corrected it, it then gave me the right results for that. So those kind of fine tuning you need to do. A good thing is that all of this you can ask it to save in memory, right? So the first time it does a mistake and it goes over it, you can ask that, okay, let's not repeat this in future, please save it in memory, and then it will save it in memory and not do that in future. Okay, so this is taking some time, so I will let this run, and meanwhile I will show you some of the other prompts that I had already created. So this is the creative one which I did last night actually, right? And I will start from the very beginning. Okay, so a bit of context on the creative fatigue aspect. Does any marketer want to explain what creative fatigue is for ads? Any volunteer? Especially in context of Meta.
Yeah, so after some time, like after running the same creatives, the CPM goes up, and consequently then all the downstream effects also become more expensive.
Right. So what happens is if you're running the same creative for a long time in a given audience, and it depends on the reach of the audience, etc. as well, the cost per impression goes up because the same people are seeing the creative multiple times, and the kind of success that you were having in the beginning, you stop having that in later on. And while your product might still be relevant, but what works, and you would have heard of companies, and we do this day in and day out, is set up production teams doing like 100 ads, 150 ads every month and I've heard of startups doing this even 100 ads a day to beat this creative fatigue, right? So what could be a framework by which I am not caught off guard that my performance dips, and actually Claude will tell me that your ads are actually now need to change. There is a refresh that is needed, right? So what is it that Claude told me? Claude told me that let's look at frequency, 7-day rolling, leading indicator, watch the rate of change, not just the value. CTR trend. So CTR is click-through rate. If lesser people are clicking on those ads, which means that there is fatigue and more people are sort of ignoring your ads, right? What is the CPM trend with reach, right? Meta repricing you because relevance is dropping and all. So now these are fine, but my biggest red flag over here in terms of what it mentioned was a 7-day rolling frequency. Now, as an experienced marketer, I know that this is not correct, right? Because what happens is that 7-day rolling frequency is always low. Because it is only considering the number of people that it has seen in those 7-day period. It is not considering what it has seen in how many number of people have seen in lifetime. And the frequency is basically defined as impressions by reach, that so if let's say one person saw the ad 3 times, frequency is 3, right? So I pushed it back, right? It gave some other parameters also. How does the rolling 7-day frequency help? The performance of the ad will be based on cumulative frequency, not on 7-day number, because in 7 days the frequency will always be low. And so Claude is telling me, you are right, I overweighted the 7-day number, let me correct it. Is the better fatigue signal? So then it sort of revised this, and it flagged some caveats that during the date window this will be calculated. So which then I gave a prompt that we always need to look at maybe last 3 months data and not just in the date window in which it is selected, right? So and then the other red flag for me was these thresholds, right? So these thresholds that it told me is lifetime frequency 5 to 7 refresh territory, lifetime frequency 3 to 4 monitor except CTR softening. Now as marketers, what we practice is that if frequency is going above 2.5, it is already in the red zone for performance marketing, and if frequency is going above 3.5, definitely that needs a change. So this did not sit with me, so I pushed it back again. I think 5 might be too much of a weight, we need to start monitoring the CTR and results and all. Then it said, you are right and your numbers match what performance marketers in this do. 5 to 7 is brand or reach campaign territory, which is correct, right? If you are doing more of branding or reach campaign, then 5 to 7 is a good frequency to have to reach at least. But if you are in doing performance marketing, which is very much ads driven, then 5 to 7 is actually quite a lot, right? So then it said, okay, I will refine the thresholds as per the framework that you have given, right? And when 5 plus is still defensible, it said brand, etc. And it mentioned some adjustment in terms of like number of impressions, or if the audience is too small and it reaches that frequency very quickly, we need to adjust that, right? So now that I had a basic discussion on the framework, not the framework was very evolved, but I asked it that I want a dashboard, right? I want to see a dashboard where this data is fetched for these ads and like showing what is the weekly comparison and all. And then it sort of asked me some questions. There were some, so it created one version of the dashboard, but there were some issues and all. Then it created again. So I'll just take you through the dashboard that it finally created. Right. So this is the current dashboard. Again, there are like I myself might refine multiple things over here, but this is as of now what is the current version of it, right? So it is giving me an action summary. Before that, it is giving me the discussions that we had and what framework we are using. So the key thing is, I was looking at some of the questions that came up in the form, that will AI automatically tell me whether my creative is working or not working. Again, it's not a magic wand. You need to mull with it, debate it with on the framework. Once framework is frozen, once your rubric is frozen, how to evaluate it, then AI is going to do a good job and tell you that, okay, this is the right thing to do and all. So you don't need to like run this or like create these dashboards again and again. It will give you insights over that. But that framework is something that you will have to bring in from your marketing knowledge, right? Because as you saw, there were some errors in terms of the general advice that it was giving. It was not like a very straightforward advice that it was there. I hope all of you can see this dashboard, right? So there is an action summary where there is a refresh, and the parameters that are defined is that if, let's say, lifetime impressions is less than 10,000, then it goes into immature category, right? So there are two which are in the immature category for this month. These two ads, they have not reached enough impressions, so there is no inference can be made about those ads, right? Now, in this table, there are many things, but I would like to have your attention on these two, one, right? Which is Sorry, what's happening? Okay, right. I hope all of you can see it. There was some interruption in my system in between. I'll just exit Whisper Flow. Okay. So yeah, CTR delta versus week one. So this is basically if lesser people are clicking versus week one of the ad, right? And then cost per result delta versus week one. If there is a higher increase versus what, let's say you were getting a cost per result of whatever 500 rupees, now it has gone much higher, then this is a red flag, right? And so if those red flags come, it is either comes in the refresh or retire category. How it decides between refresh and retire is based on the number of impressions. Now all these if let's say you have not spent enough time in marketing, these terms might be coming across as jargon, but there is no alternative to know these terms if you want to use Meta Ads MCP, right? Or like if you want to run the ads manager, that's the basic of it. But you can really apply it. What it is doing is that you can apply these frameworks and you can get insights very quickly compared to what you would have done if you would had to create this dashboard. You would have to go to your business manager and then pull this report. If you wanted this kind of a real-time dashboard, you would have to go to your tech team to pull all this data and put everything together. All that it is cutting short, right? And so it is giving me insights in this manner, right? I'll just go back to the chat over there and just show you some of the back and forth that was there in the dashboard creation itself, right? So looking at the data, I had some pointers that monitoring should start at a lifetime frequency of 1.5 and not 2.5 because everything was coming healthy when it created the first version of the dashboard for me. And then I also asked it that how are you deciding refresh versus retire? There were some questions related to audience fatigue versus creative fatigue. I think this is key over there, that where if let's say CPM is increasing too much, then you to an extent the audience is also fatigue is reaching, but that requires some more understanding into things, so I'll not go too much into detail into those aspects, right? So what is the maturity gate? So initially it was using both frequency and impressions. I asked it to keep it only to impressions, that if it is less than 10,000 impressions, I don't want to give a score to the campaign because it is too early. Let's not use frequency at all, right? And the thing that initially it had taken only CTR data. Sometimes you will see, and you might have noticed in when I showed you the dashboard also, that your CTR might have worsened, but your CPR is still good. And CPR is cost per result. So for example, in this case, in my app, it was rupee 5 trial, okay, which was the main cost per result on which I was optimizing, right? And if that is moving in positive direction, even if CTR is fluctuating, CPM is fluctuating, I don't mind that. So that I came then I revised it as my primary metric, that if that is happening, I can still continue the same creative. I don't want to change it. So these are just like going a bit back and forth in terms of right, like what should the right framework and the right metrics be. Over here I had a question: do you fetch this data every time, or do you save it somewhere? And it is saving some of it is fetched as well. So again, you can define all of these things. It is much more easier to do in Claude Code, because then it uses some of your local local space and saves that data over there if you don't want to run too many API calls, etc., right? And then again, it is back and forth. I'll not go in too much of this, but this is how you like start with a framework and then get into deep analysis of any particular aspect. Now just going back to the live questions that we had asked, right? So let's see. Okay, it has some answer. So only 3 ads in the trial 7-day success campaign actually delivered events in this window, right? So there were these events that had happened. Cost per event in celeb ad 1 was 344. Other two much higher cost per result, right? Had the best CPA by the wide margin, but only spent this much, whereas the other ones they did not perform that much. Now the context that I remember, and I'm not running these campaigns, it has been few months, so I don't monitor this that closely, is that this had been running for a long time, although it was performing well. Then I had like saturated, and in January sometime I might have plugged it down or maybe changed the objective, right? But these are some very basic questions. This is not as detailed framework as what we saw in the creative fatigue kind of analysis. This is more on the like basic Q&A that you can do just to get, okay, which ad is performing well and all. You can directly get it from here. Okay, so I will it's 11:30. I'll take 5-10 minutes to also talk about, if let's say you need to create campaigns, is it possible, what are the limitations over there. So what I've found is that analysis wise it is quite on point. It can do a lot of things. Creation of campaigns is still semi manual. I will tell you what exact limitations are there and what is are the things that can be done, but I can take a couple of questions on the analysis part if there are any right now. Feel free to maybe put it in the chat box or ask directly. Okay, I see one question is actually about creating new campaigns, so we will go into that. Okay, so so no questions till now. So then I will move to the campaign creation part. Right. So again, for the purpose of the session, I already have that chat. Right, and optimization. Yeah, I'll cover that part. Yeah. Okay, so initial answer to this question was that yes, it can create those campaigns. The the main limitation that comes in campaign creation is related to to the image uploads, right? And I will share with you how it is done, like what is the limitation there in terms of the process, right? But the image uploads is still something that is manual and all. So we did a quick write check of a new campaign. We tested it and it was working. Then I asked about the image uploads, etc. and everything. And what it asks is that, so I'll cover this maybe first the image part and all, that it can take from the media library. Now, if you are familiar to Business Manager, so this is a business Manager account, right? Let's say, sorry, I'm sharing the window, right? I'll just switch to the Business Manager to show where the media library is. Okay, so this is a typical ads manager, right? So if you go to tools, there is this media library over here. In manage, you can find this media library. So any ad campaign that you create, or even you can,
I don't think we can see your screen.
is it? Okay, just hold on. It's saying presentation starting. 1 second. Okay, that Google Meet button is grayed out. Presentation is starting, it's just giving message. Just let's wait for a couple of minutes.
Sure, can I just ask a question?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, let's go ahead.
Just one very basic question that I have is that in the context of operating ads, right? I am not someone who would do it alone. There would be like maybe one more person or two other people, right, who would be working with me. Any way in which this can be like shared with like a couple of people, right? Because right now what I can see is you're alone doing pretty much everything, and that's great. I think the capability is amazing with Claude linked to Meta Ads. But how do we ensure that like maybe a team or more folks get access to this?
Right. So see again, the analysis that is being put in Claude, you can create workflows to put it to a common output. That common output could be a Google Sheet, right? Could be your own GitHub repo, right? So some amount of workflow designing will be needed if that will a little bit of workflow you will need to build, but it definitely can be done for a collaborative version and all, right? So like Google also has an MCP, and even there are Google App Script tools as well. I myself built automations based on Google App Scripts, right? So you can push the whatever analysis and the results etc to Google Sheet, and people can view that very easily. But these are like the artifact or the dashboard that I was showing, that is basically an HTML dashboard. You can host it as an internal platform for together. All of these has now become very easy to build, right?
Got it. Great, thanks.
Yes, my suggestion is around there are a lot of judgments that you used in between that okay, Claude is saying this, but I don't think this is right. Like whether the number 5 or 3, certain judgment calls you to like whether it was frequency or something else, right?
Yeah.
So wouldn't it be better if you create a Claude skill and let it run on its own rather than just analyzing it? The way you do it, you train the system like this is how I use it. This is how I use my judgment calls. And then in addition to what you suggested that there can be an internal tool that can be built, if you use a skill as well, it will be even further like
Absolutely, and that's the idea. So right now actually I'm doing that project with a client where that's the mandate, that whatever is your internal framework, and these frameworks 90% are same, but 10% variation is there based on the business, based on the context and everything, right? So you can build your own custom skill and then run it for your entire organization. If you're running it solo, run it for yourself. If you're running for your organization, run it for your entire organization. So yeah, bang on. That's the idea, that this is just the start as an individual, but you can build all these workflows to create further.